Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dan and today we're going to talk about furniture. Backpacking furniture. And probably not the furniture you're thinking of, because many of you have been on backpack trips and hikes where you've seen people with the origami chairs with the little legs that plug in and it looks like a chair. But the problem with it is it's a single-use item. You can only use it as a chair. Really, I don't know what else you could use it for. There are other chairs that you can put your sleeping pad in. You put them on the ground, you slide your sleeping pad into it, it's got a back and a bottom, and I'm sure it's very comfortable. But the risk you run is an ember from the fire gets on that and burns a hole in your sleeping pad, or something pokes through and you get a hole in your sleeping pad. What should you bring then for furniture? And why would you bring furniture? Well, today we're going to talk about sit pads. Sit pads are something that you bring that really serves multiple purposes, but its primary purpose is to protect you from the environment, i.e. the ground. And when I say protect from the environment, there's a number of scenarios. One, in Southern California where I live, it often gets very warm. So if you're hiking during the day and you come to a stop, you may be sitting on the ground, you may be sitting on some rocks, not a lot of trees or needles to sit on that's going to protect you from the ground. So you need to bring something that's going to protect you from the ground. Well, that's your sit pad. You could put your backpack on the ground and sit on that, but I don't like to do that. It gets my backpack all dirty, and then the second scenario, if it's raining and it's muddy, now my backpack's all muddy and I got to deal with that. And the third scenario is snow. If you're going into really cold conditions, you certainly don't want to be sitting on the ground or on any surface that's got snow on it that's going to wick heat away from your body. And so you can see the theme here. We're trying to protect the body from the environment like we do with all our layers of clothing and everything else. So what kind of sit pad should you bring? Well, I can tell you what I do. I'm going to share with you my system. Hopefully it'll help some of you. It's not a really complicated thing. What I usually bring is the Z-Seat by Thermarest. So this is an accordion style seat. You can see here, I can fold it up, much smaller package. I can slip this into the side of my pack near where a water bottle is. I can put a couple rubber bands around it to hold it shut. And it only weighs 2 ounces. So now let's go through the use cases for this. Well, the use cases are this. 1, you've come to a stop on the trail and it's time to take a break. You take your pack off and now you need a place to sit. Well, if we're talking about hot conditions, if we're talking about cold conditions, or we're talking about wet conditions, you don't want to just sit on the ground or a log or anything that has any of that going on. You want to be insulated from the ground. And so you take your sit pad, the Z-Seat, and depending on if you're trying to reflect heat to your body because it's really cold, you would put the reflective side up. If you're just trying to protect your body from heat or from wet, put the reflective side down so that the side that isn't reflective is going to allow your body to be protected from the ground. You can do it this way. You can double it over if you want. And so you get a little more padding when you do it this way. What else can I do with this? Well, now we get into the additional use cases. So the primary use case, protect you from the ground, give you a piece of comfort, keep you dry, etc. We covered that. The second use case is to be used in your tent. So you've come to your campsite, you've set up your tent. Maybe it's raining, maybe it's cold, maybe it's hot, any of those scenarios. You get in your tent to go to sleep, and you find that your 3/4 inch sleeping pad is not really going to protect your feet and your ankles, and maybe you're trying to sleep on your back. And so they're just dangling down there and cold. So you can take this, put it at the end of your sleeping pad, this side up, and reflect some heat up onto your feet. Now it isn't a huge amount, but it'll be really effective to keep your feet a little bit warmer. Or you're a side sleeper like me and your pad isn't quite thick enough and your hip is kind of grinding into the ground a little bit, take your sit pad. Make sure there's no needles or anything in it. Slide it underneath your pad where your hips are and you get, a 1/2 inch of comfort right there. Or your shoulders are cold. Slide it under your shoulders, reflective side up, a little bit of heat to keep your shoulders warm. If you're in a hammock, again, all the same scenarios. You can put it in the foot box to keep your feet warm, reflective side up. You can put it under your shoulders, reflective side up, to keep them warm. You can put it under your hips if they're a little cold. So, for sleeping scenarios, all kinds of things we can do with this. The third use case is a little bit more of a stretch, but I have done it, and it's very handy, is you're trying to start a campfire, and having a hard time getting the fire going, and you need to blow on it. You can use this as a fan. Fan, 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 and boom, your campfire will get going a little quicker. You're not out of breath sitting there blowing on the fire trying to get it to go. So, as a fan, or if you're just hot, you can fan yourself with it, or you can go crazy and go full fan, right? And finally, the last scenario for this, and there's others. You can use it outside your vestibule to put your feet on. You can use it as a table if you stop and you do have a place to sit that isn't going to have environmental factors. You can use it as a table to put your lunch on or prepare a meal. But the last scenario is an emergency for signaling. Now, this is not the most reflective surface, but it is reflective enough, or if you want to distinguish yourself from the surroundings, if it's very brown or green from where you're at, you can do the yellow side up and you can signal with this, right? So again, bright color, very useful. Now, we've covered the use cases. We've covered when you would bring this, which I bring it all the time. It's 2 ounces. It's inexpensive and is totally worth being in your pack. But over the years that I've brought this, I've discovered that there's actually a piece I like to bring with this that gives me a few more options. And that is a piece of reflectix that has been sized to approximately the same size as this pad. And here's how I use it. If I get someplace and I want to sit in Southern California and it's warm, I want to protect me from the ground, boom, I put it this side down, I have a seat. And then I use the reflectix this side up. You can see this piece is about the same size. One side's labeled ground. I'll put this on the ground in front of me and I can prepare a lunch on it. I can use it as a table, etc. If the conditions are cooler and I want to take my boots off and have a place for my feet to sit that they won't get dirty, muddy, etc., I can still use my Sitpad to sit on, and I'll put this in front of it. And now I have an even bigger surface area, and I can put my feet on the reflectix to keep them clean. And I can even double these up. If I want to double these up, because the conditions are such that I want some more padding, just to sit my bony behind on, I can double them up. And now I have even more comfort. If you haven't used reflectix before, reflectix is basically a product you're going to get at the hardware store. It's used as insulation around water heaters and other things. You can buy it really inexpensively. I think it's 25 yards by 20 inches wide for like $20. It's not super expensive. You can do all kinds of things with it with duct tape. It's easy to cut. You just need a pair of scissors. So it's super quick to make projects with. So, sit pad combinations, great. Tent combinations, the same thing. Now I have even more ways to keep my body warm. If it's the foot scenario, I can double these up and I can put this under my feet at the end. And now I've got a reflectic layer and I've got another pad on top of that. Great for keeping the feet warm. I can do it in a hammock. Same thing, in the foot box. I can do it under my shoulders. I can do it under my hips. All the same scenarios apply, or I can separate them if I have 2 cold spots. Very handy. Now, as far as the using it for a fan for the fire, absolutely. I can actually be sitting on this one and use this one to fan the fire. And when I'm done with it, put it in front of me for my feet to sit on, put it behind me up against a log or something to protect my back. Lots of scenarios. And then finally, signaling, right? So signaling, this is the ground side, right? Still very reflective, you can see that. But if I flip it over to the clean side, which is the side I try to do all the other work on, you can see how reflective that is. Super reflective. It's basically an aluminum sheet on here. You can use this for signaling an aircraft. It's really reflective. It's fantastic to have in that scenario. So why wouldn't you bring this? So I usually always bring these 2. One is shoved in one pocket of my pack. One is shoved in the other pocket. One is rolled up. One is accordion. Rubber bands around them. Great. Get to a stop. I can decide which one I want to get out, what scenario I'm playing with, and how I want to insulate myself from the surroundings. And the 2 of them together only weigh 4.15 ounces. So much lighter than some of the chair options out there, much quicker to deploy, many more options when you're in the field as far as emergencies, in the tent at night sleeping, during the day preparing meals, stopping for breaks, as well as if you're with someone who doesn't have a sit pad, you can be the nice guy and say, here, why don't you use this to sit on to insulate yourself from the ground, and I'll just use mine and everything's fine. Or if they have a cold night and their sleeping pad isn't sufficient, you could put the reflectix piece under your torso. It doesn't cover all of it, but together you have some more insulation that you can use. I mean, the number of options is just limitless. So I highly recommend, if you're new to backpacking or you're just starting in backpacking, give it some consideration. At a minimum, get yourself a Z-Seat. They're not expensive. They're super light at 2 ounces. You can shove it almost anywhere in your pack. It's a no-brainer. It's really important for you to have insulation from the ground. It's really important for you to have multi-use items, and this fits all those bills. If you want to go expand it, like I have, and bring a piece of reflectix that fits about the same size but gives you other options, do that. But your backpacking style is what you're going to develop over time, just like all of us have been through. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope this helped somebody out there who's just starting out or looking to start out. And we'll see you on the channel next time. So take care and be careful out there. Thanks, everybody.